one of the suttas, it says very clearly how you act for yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else says or does. They said if somebody comes at you, whether it's timely or untimely, whether what they're saying is true or untrue, whether they're saying it with loving kindness or they're saying it with anger, you need to remember that your mind is the thing that causes you pain. The Buddha said that you need to take that person when they say something in a rough way or an untimely way or in a harsh way, or even if they're angry, and not respond negatively to that other person. You use that other person as a reminder to radiate loving and kind thoughts. And you radiate that to that person. And then you start radiating loving kindness to the whole world, to all beings. If you can live like that, you will have a happy life. You won't have, oh, they said this and I didn't like it, and the gossip that goes along with that sort of thing. They said this and it wasn't true, and being angry at them because they said something that wasn't true. You don't pay attention to that so much. You send loving and kind thoughts to that person. Do you want to affect the world around you in a positive way or a negative way? It's your choice how you affect the world around you. You want to affect the world around you in a positive way? There's some things that you need to practice. And it does take practice. You need to learn how to smile. Now, before I go too much further, I see a lot of people sitting with their arms crossed like this. This is called a thinking posture. You're not paying attention when you're thinking. Please uncross your arms. And don't sit with your legs crossed either. There's some, the Buddha told the monks that there are some things that we have to be careful of when people are coming and listening to the Dhamma, and this is one of the things. You want to practice listening to the Dhamma with an open heart. When you're like this, it closes. And you start thinking, not paying attention. So when you uncross your arms and uncross your legs, you become open and you hear clearly what is being said. Now, getting back to what I was talking about, if you practice smiling all day, all the time, your mindfulness will become very good and very sharp. When you have joy in your mind from smiling, your mind is uplifted. Your mind is clear. And it's very easy to see when your mind gets heavy and you start thinking seriously about things. So the more you can practice smiling during the day, whether you feel like smiling or not, then you will begin to have an uplifted mind. That's what the Buddha was teaching us. He said, if you want to have a happy mind, there's 4 things that you need to do. This is called the 4 right efforts. You have to notice when your mind has unwholesomeness in it. What's unwholesome? Emotional states, dislike states, unhappy states. Notice when that happens. Let go of that unwholesome state and relax the tightness in your mind caused by that unwholesome state. Bring up a wholesome state. What's a wholesome state? Smile. The more you can smile, the more wholesome your mind becomes. And keep that wholesome state going all the time. Now, there's another thing that is incredibly helpful, and I'm sure that not too many people really hear about this sort of thing. And that is when you are sad, or angry, or fearful, or dissatisfied, whatever the catch of the day happens to be, the emotional state that arises. When you see that and you laugh with yourself for being caught by that attachment, you're not caught anymore. When you laugh with yourself for being angry, you are not angry anymore. It goes from I'm mad and I don't like this to it's only this anger. Now, what happens when you do that? You're losing your attachment. What is attachment? How do you see attachment? How do you recognize it when it comes up? The second noble truth the Buddha talked about is the cause of suffering. We all know about the first noble truth. We don't have to talk about that too much, although an awful lot of monks likes to talk about that. But what's the cause of this? And the Buddha said the cause of suffering is craving. What is craving? How can you recognize craving when it comes into your mind? Craving always manifests as tension and tightness in your mind and in your body. When you notice that you're sad, depressed, angry, whatever it happens to be, that emotional state, you'll notice that there's a lot of tension in your head. How many people give themselves headaches because they don't like this painful feeling when it arises? More than a few. Almost everybody gives themselves headaches. And how does it happen? The Buddha said we're made up of 5 different things. The psychophysical process. You have a physical body. There is feeling. I'm not talking about emotional feeling right now. I'm talking about pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Then you have perception, sanya. Perception is the part of the mind that names things. It's the start of concepts. It also has memory in it. The next one is thoughts. And the last one is consciousness. Now you're made up of these 5 different things. Our habit is when a painful feeling arises, we try to think the feeling away. And the more you try to think the feeling, the bigger and more intense that feeling becomes. And it will get so big that you start running around looking for some kind of relief. And this is when a lot of people go to doctors and say, I've got this depressed mind and I don't know what to do with it. Give me some medicine. Make it better. The Buddha's medicine was learning how to understand this process and how to let go of this suffering. Craving always arises as tension and tightness in your mind and in your body. You feel yourself starting to get a headache? Start relaxing all of those muscles in your neck. Let go of all of those thoughts. Smile. I don't feel like smiling. I don't care. How does your mind feel now? Huh? Feels good, huh? See? The more you can laugh, in other words, you stop taking it personally, and you see it as it's just this feeling. Well, that's easy to let go of. So you let it be. You let it go. You relax. Come back and smile some more. Now, they've done an awful lot of tests on how mind works and how body works. And they found out that even when you don't feel like smiling, if you smile, even if you have a lot of sadness or anxiety or depression, if you smile, your mind will look at you and say, well, I'm smiling, I must be happy. And then your mind will start to become happy. Isn't that odd? The more you can smile during the day and give that smile away to everyone else around you, the happier you will become. It's the way it works. Now, the Buddha talked a lot about practicing your dana, practicing your generosity. What was he really talking about? Was he talking about money? No, he wasn't talking about that sort of thing. He was talking about you personally giving a good feeling to somebody else. But you can't give it to somebody else unless you feel it yourself. So you start smiling, and you smile to other people around you, and then they start feeling good, and they start smiling. Now you're affecting the world around you in a positive way. Especially in this country. Right now there's so much fear and there's so much worry about losing jobs and not having enough money and losing your house. The more you get involved in the fear and anxiety, the more you think that this problem is so big that you can't get around it. Don't sit with your arms folded, please. The more you try to think your feelings, the bigger the problem becomes, the more of an emergency it becomes. And the easier it is to become depressed and sad and over-concerned. Well, it's the economy's fault. The economy is not causing your suffering. You are causing your own suffering by taking a feeling and making it yours personally, and then trying to think away the feeling. So what you need to do is to recognize that there is a definite process that happens that will, when you understand it, start to give you relief. Now, one of the wonderful things about the Buddha was that when he was talking about the Dhamma, he said, this is immediately effective. He wasn't talking about doing a 3-month retreat. He was talking about right here, right now. The more you practice having an uplifted mind, in other words, the more you smile, the easier it is to let go of the worry and the fear and the anxiety. Have you ever had one of those kind of days when nothing went right? Everything you tried to do was an effort? And finally, you had a choice. Either I can laugh about this or I can start crying. So you laugh about it, and all of a sudden, the day's not so bad anymore. What happened? When you laugh, you stop taking everything personally, and you're kind of standing back a little bit, and you're seeing that this process is not worth worrying about, not worth getting involved in. You can't think problems away. You have to allow the space for thoughts to be and let them go. The more you can smile into what you're doing while you're doing it, the easier it is to let go of that pain. Let go of the suffering. There's one chair right here if you want. So what is the best remedy for practicing what the Buddha taught us? Being happy. Giving that happiness to somebody else. You can't give what you don't have. So it's a matter of learning how, when days are really bad, nothing you try works, you're behind schedule, everything is slowing you down, and you're becoming frustrated. Have a good laugh. And all of a sudden, all of this heaviness that you've been putting on your own shoulders lifts. Now, what happens when the day is going wrong? I have an expectation. I want the day to go the way I want it to go, right? But it doesn't happen that way. And because it doesn't happen that way, you try harder. And you start thinking more. And then you start, oh, I'm behind schedule. I'm thinking about what I need to do next instead of what I'm doing right now. And you get about halfway done and you go, oh, I forgot. And then you go running off and do something else, and you come back and you're not done with what you were doing. And it's hard to get back into it again. This is called a restless mind. A restless mind is very scattered. You're not in the present moment. You're not doing what you're doing while you do it. You're thinking about doing something else while you're doing this. So you don't do this very well. And you don't really finish this in a satisfactory way before you're running off to do something else. And then you get angry with yourself because I'm not doing this good. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. And now you're beating yourself up, and you're causing yourself a lot more pain and suffering. What to do when that happens? Well, I'm in a hurry. I've only got 20 minutes and I have these 5 things I have to get done. The best thing to do? Sit down for 5, 10 minutes. Calm your mind. Smile with yourself. Let go of all of your thoughts. Let the worry be. Don't get involved with it. Have a little chuckle for getting caught. And then when you get up, your mind is very centered. And you do this job, done. You do this, done. All of a sudden you become more efficient with what you're doing because you're staying in the present moment, not thinking about something else. You're not worried about anything because you're just doing this right here, right now. What's the best way to be efficient? Having fun with what you're doing while you do it. Enjoying what you're doing. Not dread, not, oh, I hate doing the dishes. As a result, you don't do them very well and you get chewed out by somebody else because they're still dirty. Now that's just a little example, but that you see what I'm talking about. When you have happiness in the present moment with what you're doing, you become very efficient and very good at doing what you're doing. And this leads to a lot of peace and tranquility arising in your mind. You're not fighting with the present moment. You're not leaning out of the present moment, wishing the next moment to be better. You're letting it go and you're just being here right now. The Buddha said we're the happy ones. Are we? Or are we resisting being happy in the present moment? Don't think about going to the movie because then I'll be happy. Be happy right here, right now. Practice your smiling. Practice giving your smile away to someone else. Practice your laughing. Isn't that odd? Have you ever heard a monk tell you you're supposed to laugh? Huh? Now, the next thing that you really have to be careful of, and that is keeping your precepts. And coming back to this country from Asia, people don't like to hear about that sort of thing. They don't like to hear about morality. They don't like to hear about what it really is talking about. But this is the foundation of your practice. What are the precepts? Don't kill any living being on purpose. Don't take anything that's not given. Don't have any wrong sexual activity. Wrong sexual activity, someone that has sexual activity with another person's mate, that would be wrong sexual activity. Someone that has sexual activity with someone that's young, still under the care of their parents, that's wrong sexual activity. What it boils down to is not having any sexual activity that causes anyone to be unhappy. The next part is the hard one. It has to do with your speech. Now, just in the last 10 or 12 years, people speaking in this country, even on the radio and on the television, are cursing a lot. What does cursing really imply? It implies anger. It implies that your mind is not very clear and bright. There's aversion in your mind. Oh, I did it. I hate that, no good. All of those kind of mental states take you out of the present moment, so you don't know what you're doing right here, right now. You're caught up in your mind, thinking. You don't even know you have a body. Did you ever get angry and get into a car? Now, are you really driving? That's when accidents happen, isn't it? Because you're not paying attention, because you're thinking about something else. Don't tell anybody lies. Don't try to divide people. Bring people together with your speech. Say things that are kindly. Say things that are uplifting. Not, this person said a lie, whether it's true or not. You don't need to use that kind of speech. It's better to say nothing. Don't gossip. Hard one. But what is gossip? It's getting together with other people and making up stories about somebody that's not there. They don't have anything to do with the truth. It's just making up stories. It's better not to say anything. It's better to walk away from that kind of conversation. There was a nun in Burma that was very skillful at gossip. And the monks and the nuns got very tired of her saying things that weren't necessarily true. And she was having a lot of dissatisfaction and a lot of anger coming up. And she was letting that out through her speech. And she would come up and she'd start talking to somebody and she'd start doing that. They'd turn around and walk away. And before long, she was just standing by herself. And anytime she went to talk to somebody, she started talking negatively, they walked away. That's how the monks taught her. You have to be more careful with your speech. So when somebody around you is gossiping, walk away. You don't have to listen to that stuff because you know it's probably not true. Now, what's the advantage of keeping your precepts? The more you keep your precepts without breaking them, the more calm your mind becomes. The more aware you are of what you're going to do or you're going to say before you say it. Now, the last precept, not a real popular precept. Don't take any drugs or alcohol. Why? Because you're going to break the other precepts when you do. Now, somebody that takes drugs and alcohol, when they come to a retreat, within a day, I really know whether that's what they've been doing or not. And they have a hard time doing the retreat. They have a hard time having a calm, peaceful mind. Drugs and alcohol dull you out. And you say, well, a little glass of wine now and then, only one beer now and then. On our website, we had somebody that said, I had half orange juice, half beer, only one. And I watched what it did to my mind. And all of a sudden, I had all of these hindrances coming up in my mind. What are hindrances? Lust, I want. Hatred, I don't want. Dullness, sleepiness. Restlessness, anxiety, doubt. These 5 hindrances, when they come up, they take your mind completely away from the present moment, and you get lost in your thinking and in your want to make them go away or to indulge in them. You don't know you have a body, you don't even know where you are most of the time if you're caught in a hindrance. When you break a precept, it causes the hindrances to arise. So this man tried this half beer, half other stuff, orange juice I think it was, I don't remember. And he said all of a sudden he had all of these lust thoughts coming up and dislike thoughts coming up, and he was really causing himself suffering. That's from a half a beer. So how much more a whole glass of wine? How much more a whole beer? How much more a shot of some stronger kind of alcohol? How much more taking drugs for recreational purposes? Oh, I just need to take the edge off right now. I've had a bad day. When you do that, you dull yourself out. You have a tendency to get highly emotional, not only while you're doing the drugs or alcohol, but afterwards. You have a tendency to say things that aren't very nice to other people and make them angry. Stay away from these kind of things. They only lead to your suffering. You cause your own suffering. Nobody else causes your suffering. You cause your own suffering. Why? A painful feeling arises. I don't like it. Who doesn't like it? I don't like it. That's craving. Craving is the I like it, I don't like it mind. It always shows itself by being tense and tight in your mind and in your body. Right after that, all of your stories about why you like or dislike that feeling, why you want more of it, why you don't want any more of it. And then your habitual tendency, I always act this way when this kind of feeling arises. I always act this way when they say this to me. And then you have birth of action. And you start acting in ways that are really kind of crazy. Welcome to the human race. Everybody's crazy. Everybody. Because of craving. I want it, I don't want it. Right after the birth of action, you have pain, sorrow, lamentation, grief, and despair. Now, what I just told you, what I just demonstrated to you was how dependent origination actually works. Have you heard about dependent origination before? This is a process that your mind goes through. And it always arises because of your not understanding how the Four Noble Truths actually work. And how you get caught up in liking and disliking whatever happens during your activities. And you cause yourself pain when you fight what's happening in the present moment. Now, as you know, I teach a lot of meditation. And when you sit in meditation, sometimes pain arises. And that pain can be real strong. It hurts. But when you're sitting in meditation, I tell you, don't move your body at all. Now you get to watch how your mind handles this sensation. First thing you'll notice, thinking about it. Boy, I hate that feeling. I wish it'd stop. I wish it'd go away. Why does it have to bother me now? Oh, I really don't want it to be there. I really do want to move. Every thought about the pain causes the pain to be bigger and more intense. So, you let go of the thoughts. They're only thoughts. They're not even your thoughts. They're just thoughts. And you relax the tightness caused by those thoughts. Now you see there's a tight mental fist wrapped around that feeling. I don't like that feeling. It hurts. I don't want it to be there. But the truth is, when a feeling arises, it's there. That's the truth. Isn't that profound? When it's there, it's there. So, what you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. Karma. You have a choice. You can fight that pain. You can try to resist it. You can try to change it. You can try to make it different. But what are you really doing? You're fighting with the Dhamma of the present moment. You're fighting with the truth. There's pain there, it's real, and I don't like it. It's like you take a real red-hot coal and you put it in your hand and you say, oh, that hurts. So you try to make it stop hurting by squeezing it. And the more you squeeze it, the more it hurts. So what I'm telling you is, let it go. It's just a feeling. It's painful. Okay, so what? It's still only a feeling. Now, I have a question for you. Did you ask that painful feeling to come up? Did you say, you know, I've been sitting here for a while and I haven't had any pain come up, so I guess it's time for it to come up now? You try to make that pain come up? No, nobody's dumb enough to do that. It comes up by itself because the conditions are right for it to arise. What you do with what arises in the present moment dictates what happens in the future. So you say, okay, that pain is there, but it's okay for it to be there. It has to be okay. because it's the truth. You can't fight with the truth. You can't argue with it. You can't make it any different than what it is. All you can do is allow the truth to be and relax your mind and your body. And then come back to a wholesome object. Smile. Well, it hurts too much. I don't feel like smiling. I don't care. Smile anyway. You ever stub your toe? How much does that hurt? What did you do when you stubbed your toe? If you're like most people, there's a lot of unwholesome speech that happens, and a lot of hobbling around and not liking the present moment. When pain arises in your body, that pain is telling you something that you need to recognize for yourself. When that pain arises, it's saying, I hurt, I need you to love me right there. Right where that pain is. I need love there. But what are you doing? When you stub your toe, are you giving your toe loving kindness? Or are you giving your toe anger and dissatisfaction and aversion? It's real interesting that in your body you have this thing that's in between the two lobes of your brain. It's a little tiny gland called the pineal gland. And this pineal gland, what its job is to let out a painkiller in your body. It's called endorphins. It's about 10 times stronger than morphine. Okay, it's really a good painkiller. But the only way that pineal gland will release that painkiller into your body is through having a loving, kind, open mind. So you stub your toe, you get angry. And you keep that angry and you hobble around, and that pain stays there for a long time. The next day, the day after that, the day after that, you're still hobbling around because it hurts. Because you didn't put love into that. You put your dissatisfaction into that. And then every time you walk, it hurts a little bit. What do you do with your mind? Put more dissatisfaction in it. When you do that, that closes down all the circulation around the pineal gland. It doesn't release any endorphins. So what you want to do is send love into that. Let go of those thoughts of dissatisfaction. Let go of those thoughts of aversion. Just wish that big toe well. I just went to Germany. The night before I went to Germany, I did stub my toe and I broke it. And I sent a lot of loving kindness into it. Went up. I have a loft, so I have to climb some stairs, which was not an easy thing. And I laid down and went to sleep, and I didn't wake up the whole night. I didn't have any pain arising in me. I got up the next morning, I kind of hobbled around, but after 2 days I was walking normally. No pain. You can't do anything with a broken toe outside of put a bow on it so you don't hit it again. But you put love into the painful thing. Another thing that happens, I have a wood-burning stove. I live in the forest. We have a lot of trees and a lot of wood. So when you're messing around with the wood-burning stove, sometimes you touch a piece of metal and you'll burn yourself. It's painful. But you let the pain be there, and you start sending love into that thing that hurts, and it doesn't hurt anymore. It's weird. It happens so fast. Next day, somebody looks at my hand and say, "Oh, you got a big burn there." And I look and go, "Oh, I guess I do. Yeah, I forgot." It doesn't hurt. If you have the aversion, if you have the dislike, then that closes down the pineal gland, and it closes down the painkiller in the body. And that will last for a long time. The pain will stay there for a week, 2 weeks, even longer, because of your dissatisfaction and your not being aware of how this process works. It's real interesting because when I give a retreat, I just got done giving a two-week retreat. And during the retreat, I was telling everybody, you know, what I want you to do most, I want you to smile, I want you to laugh, and I want you to have fun. Now, why would I say something like that? When you're having fun, you're interested in what you're doing. Your progress is really fast when that happens. You're not trying to do something, you're just having fun, so it picks up your interest, and you watch a little bit more closely. And when you're smiling, your mind is light. When you have joy in your mind, now this is an enlightenment factor, it's not something to be afraid of. When you have joy in your mind is very alert, your mind is very agile. Agile means you can see when your mind just starts to get heavy, and you can let it go. You can allow it to be and relax into that and smile some more. And your mind is very pure at that time. That's what the Buddha was teaching us, isn't it? How to have a pure mind. You have a pure mind when your mind is uplifted. When you let go of the tensions and tightnesses in your head. When you relax into what you're doing and have fun with what you're doing. This isn't a maybe. I've got too many students that are going, yeah, you know, this stuff really works. But it doesn't work unless you try it. I mean, this isn't philosophy. You have to practice. What's the easiest way to practice? Smile all day. I told one student that came, oh, she was miserable. She was full of anger and, just not doing well at all. So I took her to where there was a mirror. And I gave her a little watch. And I said, you have to smile for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a long time. Especially when you have a clock there watching it. You know, if you don't have the clock, you go, oh, this is good. Okay, 5 minutes is up. But with a clock, you know when you're fooling yourself. But why do you stand in front of the mirror? To see whether you're smiling or not. And when you see you're not smiling, then start smiling again. Now, what you do with that is wish yourself happiness. Wish yourself a happy feeling. Feel that happy feeling in the center of your chest. And wish yourself to be happy. And feel that happiness. If you do that every day for a week, you will feel a difference. You'll start to feel when your mind gets heavy and you start getting emotional, and you'll be able to let it go and smile some more. There was a man in Australia. He wrote and told me that he'd been doing meditation for a long time, and he just wasn't satisfied with the end results. He'd been doing it for 6 or 7 years. He was very successful at meditating, but he said, when I get done with the meditation, life is the same. I want to see what you have to teach. So I started teaching him, but he had old habits of his meditation, and he wasn't doing so well. And finally I said, look, you're not doing the meditation the way I'm showing you. You're just falling into your old habits. So here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to sit for 7 days. The only thing you have to do is smile. And any time you feel that your mind is getting negative, laugh. Have fun. And I didn't hear from him for 7 days. And I thought, he's gone someplace else. And he finally wrote back to me and he said, you know, I really took what you said to heart. And this is what I saw. When I would walk around, always before you told me to smile, I always walked around with my head down. And I was always in a mental haze, thinking this and thinking that. But when I started smiling, my posture changed a little bit, and I started looking around. And you know, other people started smiling back at me, and they never do that. And other people started to come up and talk to me when I was smiling. And they never did that. So I wrote back to him. I said, "Do you notice any change in your mindfulness?" He said, "I didn't even know what mindfulness was before I started doing it." What's the definition of mindfulness? Being able to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. It's remembering to observe. So, because he was smiling, he was starting to see how his mind got heavy, and he started laughing a little bit with that, and he noticed, oh, when I laugh, I'm not so attached to my thoughts and feelings. I'm not so involved with all of this thinking nonsense that I've been doing for so many years. And then he said, and now the doctor, he cut down on the drugs I was taking. Drugs? Why are you taking drugs? Oh, I'm in a mental institute. Well, it would have helped if you'd have told me, it'd have given me some idea. But they told him that when he was in the hospital, when he got admitted to the hospital, that he was going to stay there for the rest of his life. That he wasn't going to change. And as he continued smiling and being happy, people would write to me in the Yahoo group, and he would write back to them and say, you know, I don't know if this is right or not, but this is what my experience was. When I smiled into things, my mind became very alert and very uplifted and very happy. Maybe you can try that. He became a great teacher. Very much giving advice as good as I give, or maybe even better in some cases. It was amazing. Just because he practiced smiling, laughing when he couldn't smile. He said, you know, even when I didn't feel like smiling, I smiled and I felt better. There's advantage to that. Practice smiling all the time, and what happens in your mind becomes lighter. When your mind is lighter, you're able to see more clearly how mind's attention gets caught by a situation. Or when somebody comes up to you when it's not time for them to talk and you don't have time to talk, they want to continue talking. Or when they come up to you and they start telling you a whole bunch of lies. Or when they come up to you and they're angry and they're giving you their anger. What are you supposed to do with that? You don't necessarily smile with your face, but you smile with your heart. What's the definition of compassion? Compassion is seeing another person in pain, allowing them the space to have their pain and love them no matter what. Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter what they do. Now, when I started this talk, I was telling you about what you do with somebody that comes to you and they have anger. I'll give you another instance. You go to work, first thing that happens is your boss is angry. And they come at you with their anger. What do? You take their anger, make it your anger, and throw it back at them. Now you're fighting. Now this also happens in relationships. Men and women relationships, married couples, all of this. And then you start talking at the same time. So you don't hear what that other person says, you only hear what you say. Sound familiar? So after a little while, they go away. What do you think about it? What do you think about after you get in a fight? What they said, what you said, what you should have said. And I'm right and they're wrong. That's what happens. And then it plays over again just like it was on a tape deck. Same words, saying it in the same order, in the same way. Now, what happens when somebody else walks up to you and they start to say something to you? And they might not mean anything, but it might sound a little harsh to you. You take the anger that you have from that past experience and you start throwing it at them. Now you're having a rotten day. And then you go home and you say, you know, it was such a lousy day. Leave me alone. I want to be alone. All I want to do is sleep. And when you go to sleep, you're tossing and turning. And you don't get good sleep, so you wake up the next morning kind of groggy and not clear. And you go to work, and if anybody says anything, you snap at them. Sound familiar? Why did it happen like that? Because you took somebody else's pain and suffering. You took their anger and you made it your anger. You caused yourself a lot of suffering because you tried to take somebody else's pain and you made it your pain and you threw it back at them. But if you're compassionate, if you practice what the Buddha is teaching, it doesn't matter what that other person says. It doesn't matter at all. As a matter of fact, don't even pay attention to what they're saying. You spend your time sending loving and kind thoughts to that person. You can see them suffering. You know what it feels like to get angry? Not pleasant. So you have compassion for that person. And you radiate loving kindness to that person, and one of two things will happen. Either they will calm down, and then you can start discussing things in a rational way, or they'll leave, walk off grumbling. Occasionally people get angry, and they'll come and they'll start talking to me, and then they'll start talking to each other, and they get really highly emotional, and they're talking at the same time, and what do? I sit there and just smile. Radiate loving kindness to them. Doesn't matter what they're talking about. That's not the real problem. That's only a made-up problem. So I radiate loving kindness, and before long they're just starting to talk like normal people. And then they're starting to laugh a little bit, and I just keep radiating loving kindness to them. And after a little while they say, well, thank you, Bhante, we got to go to work. And I didn't say a word to them. It takes practice to be able to do that. So you practice every day. You practice smiling. You practice radiating loving kindness to whatever person you see and wish them well in your mind. You don't have to take another person's pain and make it yours. As a matter of fact, if you do, you're only causing yourself pain, and you're certainly not helping the situation. Radiate loving kindness. Now, in this particular sutta that I was talking to you about, it's called the simile of the saw. And the Buddha was talking to monks about this. He said it doesn't matter what another person does or says. What matters is what happens in your own mind. He said, if you practice in this way, giving loving kindness to other people without any boundaries, without any limits, and then sending loving kindness to all beings, no matter what you're doing, do you think that there's anything that another person that would say that would upset your mind? If you're focusing on loving kindness, doesn't matter what somebody else says, does it? He said, if there were two bandits when you're walking out alone, came with a saw and started sawing your limbs off, if you hold even one thought moment of dislike or dissatisfaction, then you're not following what the Buddha said. Now, that's a little radical for laymen, but you get the idea of how important it is not to get caught up in what other people say. It's more important for you to focus your mind on loving kindness and wishing them well. Now this is practicing your generosity. This is practicing your morality. And when you do that, your mind naturally develops and becomes more spiritually based. It's not the practice you get from sitting like a rock in meditation. It's the practice of radiating loving kindness during your daily life. So, we come back to what I started talking about. Smile. Laugh. Have fun. That's what life is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be worrying about this or that. Somebody wrote me an email and they were nasty. So what? Can you radiate loving kindness to that person? Doesn't matter what they said. What matters is what you do with what arises in you in the present moment. Well, husband and wife don't agree on something. Okay, fine. It's okay not to agree. But you can't talk at the same time. That's breaking a rule. The rule is this person talks, says what they think. The other person says, okay, thank you very much. Now, this other person talks without getting interrupted and says what they think. And then they can come to some kind of agreement. They can start compromising a little bit and say, well, maybe we can do it this way or do it that way. Is that better than yelling? Especially when you're yelling at the same time as somebody else so they don't know what you're saying, but you think they do because you said it. So you see what the Buddha is really talking about is learning how to live in peace and harmony all the time. And when you do, how do you think you affect the world around you? Don't sit with your arms crossed, please. How do you affect the world around you? When you are peaceful and calm and smiling and having fun with everybody else around you. Are you practicing the Eightfold Path at that time? You better believe it. What's a proper perspective? What's right view? Not taking things personally. Taking interest in what you're doing in the present moment, but seeing it as part of an impersonal process. When you have peace and calm and you're having fun, what kind of an image are you projecting for the universe? Are you projecting sadness, sorrow, worry, anxiety, a feeling of loss, a feeling of poverty? Or are you holding an image of yourself where you're having an uplifted mind and you're able to help other people around you in a positive way? What kind of image do you want to hold for yourself? What's right thought? Holding that image. So it's real important to have an image that's not full of worry, not full of anxiety, reading the newspaper, reading or watching television. There's a way to solve the problem with television. Everybody complains about it, so negative and all of that. The way to solve it is with a brick through the screen. There's a thing that we just saw a little while ago that it says, if you want to have a good community, turn off the television. How much time is wasted being by yourself? Now, you're from Sri Lanka. You know what community is. Community is getting together and being with people and helping each other. That's what the Buddha was trying to show us. Holding an image that is one of hope and helpfulness and kindness. So you're following the Eightfold Path when you have joy, when you're smiling, when you're laughing. There was a nun that came to the last retreat. She was there for 10 days or so. She was from the Zen tradition, and Zen tradition is very, very stern. Nobody smiles. Nobody laughs. It's just effort. And that's the way they practiced. And she came to this retreat and she saw people smiling, she saw people laughing, and she finally had to say something. She said, you know, this is the way retreats are supposed to be. This being over serious and having this heavy mind while you're striving so hard doesn't seem to work so well. But you guys got it right. This is the way we're supposed to live. With a happy mind, with an uplifted mind, with a mind that's interested in what you're doing in the present moment and enjoying it. How long am I supposed to talk? Up to 8 o'clock. Why don't I stop now and ask if you have any questions? What I said was so clear that you don't have any doubts in your mind, and you're going to be practicing it from here on out, right? I guess so. Sure is quiet.
You must have really good situations in your life. You can't think of any situation that you need to ask about. That's good. That's good.
You can ask. I promise I won't snap. I won't. Right. Don't move in that sitting, but the next time you sit, change your posture a little bit. No. I say the next time you sit. If you sit in the same way every time and your leg goes to sleep every time, then you need to adjust so it doesn't do that. And sometimes it means if you get a small pillow, or even roll up a towel and put it underneath your knee if you're sitting on the floor, or raise your leg up a little bit if you're sitting in a chair. Sometimes just that much movement will allow that not to happen anymore. But you don't move while you're sitting. And I know how painful it is, believe me. I've done many, many, many retreats. What's more important to see is what your mind does with that. How your mind doesn't like it and how you start thinking about it. I wish it just stopped so I wouldn't have this problem anymore. And you see your mind do this. And it becomes hard. Now, the thing is, with the Buddha's teaching, he told us to do this. Never this. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of meditation technique that are being taught these days. One of them naturally causes your mind to do this and become very deeply concentrated and absorbed in an object of meditation, so you don't really see what's happening around you very much. The other kind of meditation, which is the kind that I teach, it does this. And you go through different jhanas. Jhanas are levels of understanding, because you're teaching yourself how to meditate. I'm not your teacher, I'm a guide. All I do is keep you on the path. If you start going off the path a little bit, I'll kind of nudge you and get you back on the path. The Buddha is our teacher. And I spend a lot of time reading what the Buddha was talking about, so I can be able to explain it in words that are a little bit easier to understand. You notice I don't use much in the way of Pali words, and I could. But do you understand Pali? See why I don't use it? It's much more important that you understand the teachings of the Buddha than it is to be attached to a particular way of speaking about it that you don't understand. I spent 12 years in Asia. A lot of that time was in Burma, almost 3 years in Burma, where they were either speaking Burmese or they were speaking in Pali. Difficult experience. Would have done much better if they were speaking in English so I could understand more completely what they were talking about. I wish I could speak Sri Lankan, and I would. But I'm really lousy with languages. Even English is a little tough for me. But do you understand why you don't move? Do you understand why you don't move when you're sitting in meditation? Because that way you get to see what your mind is doing and how it doesn't like that feeling and all of those thoughts. And you start to learn how to let go of the thoughts and relax so you can see that tight mental fist and allow the feeling to be. When you do that, one of two things will happen. Either the pain will go away by itself or it won't. But if it doesn't, you start gaining more mental balance. Now, there's a difference between meditation pain and real pain. Real pain is when you sit in meditation and This pain comes up, and finally you get up from the meditation and you start walking and the pain doesn't go away. That's real pain. If that happens, please do not sit like that again. Sit in another way so that you don't have this physical pain that's real arise. A meditation pain is a pain that arises and you start walking and 5 or 10 seconds later you forget that you had the pain. That's a meditation pain, and they can seem exactly the same while you're sitting. But if you're sitting and that pain arises and it doesn't go away, if you're sitting on the floor, then don't sit on the floor anymore. Sit in a chair. Sit so that you're comfortable so pain doesn't arise. There's no magic in the floor. You know why they sat on the floor in Asia? They didn't have many chairs. They weren't used to sitting on the chair. They were used to sitting on the floor. Now we're getting used to sitting in chairs. So sit in a chair. That's okay. Sit comfortably. Now, sometimes some people would sit in a chair one sitting and the next sitting they'd sit on the floor. Fine. No problem with that. As long as you're walking in between so you get some exercise and get your blood moving. This isn't a torture to sit in meditation. It's not supposed to be painful, even though a lot of monks talk a lot about suffering. I prefer to talk about the cessation of suffering, how to let it go, so you don't have this tension and tightness all the time. When you learn to smile and you learn to laugh during your daily activities, you give that smile away, you give your laughter to other people. Not at other people, to other people. And you have fun. You're keeping your precepts, you're practicing your generosity. You come and you sit in meditation, and 1 day or 2 days you'll be surprised at how deeply you go into the meditation. It's not a maybe. I have a lot of students that progress very quickly when they're willing to follow these kind of instructions. It's not painful. The meditation doesn't have to be painful at all. The meditation will teach you how to let go of pain. The meditation will teach you how to have this uplifted mind all the time. That's what the Buddha wants us to do. He wants us to be happy. Practice your generosity. Give with whatever you feel is appropriate at the time. You can give with your energy, you can give with your speech, you certainly can give with your mind and radiate loving kindness to everybody. Now you're practicing what the Buddha taught. And the number of disagreements that you have with other people starts to become less and less. I bet it's 8 o'clock. But don't believe anything that I've said tonight. Please, try it. Do it. See whether I'm right or not. See whether the Buddha's right or not. Don't believe anything blindly. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But if it works, do it over and over again. Now, it has to work for not only you, but everybody else around you. Okay? So, I believe that Kema or Chitra gave out the business cards that have our website on it. I have a lot of talks on the website. You can go and listen to them. There's instruction in the meditation. If you want to join our Yahoo group and ask questions about meditation, feel free to join us. There's always somebody around that'll give answers if I'm not there. Practice. Be happy. That's my wish for all of you. Okay, I'm going to share some merit now. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And since I came here last, we have now added a whole bunch of acreage to our monastery. We now have over 100 acres of land that's been donated. And we are going to be busy for a few years getting it all fixed up. If you want to come out and visit, please feel free. When I give a retreat, the only time I give, quote, retreats for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever is when I'm not at the monastery. When I'm at the monastery, you can come for any length of time from 4 days up to 6 weeks or 2 months, whatever. And practice with us, and if you're going to be there for 2 months, you'll already know everything after a couple of weeks. It's just a matter of practice, and we'll put you to work for us. But you'll have fun, I promise. Okay?